All right, hi everybody. We are here with Dan Howell in his exhibit at Meyer Najem, the exhibit of Patterns and Nature. Dan is here standing in front of his work, and we're going to learn a little bit more about this exhibit before we kick things off today. So hi Dan, how are you?
Hello, good afternoon.
Dan, first just remind us who you are. Tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Okay, I am a career teacher, but have now retired. So now I'm practicing what I preached all those years to my students. I'm doing artwork for myself and for the enjoyment of others.
That's awesome. And as we can see through the rest of this exhibit, you've been very prolific in the past year. The work that's in this space, how much time span are we talking about that you've been creating these particular pieces?
Probably all of them have been done within a 3-month period of time. It doesn't take a whole lot of time to actually make them, but it takes more time to glaze, stain, and fire them.
Right.
So the after process of the construction is the time process.
Right, and we always want to remind folks, it's also, I mean, you've had a whole career behind it
That's
too.
right.
So just because you can whip one of these structures out quickly doesn't mean that anybody else could.
Right. People ask me how long it takes to make something, and I say, well, about 50 years and 30 minutes.
Right, exactly. That's great. All right, so tell us about the pieces that are here.
Okay, just for example, I'll show you this one. This one is made, well, I guess I should back up a little bit. Most of these are a combination of involved patterns that are inspired by the natural form itself. Mm-hmm. The natural thing is I would find a grass or a seed pod or a leaf pattern, press it into the clay, and then look at the patterns that are created there and then stylize them or simplify them to enhance or contrast the object. In this particular case, this is sea oats that grows right next to White River. I'm not sure why it's called sea oats since it's growing by the river, but and you can see if you look at the detail, the seed head, it's kind of an overlapping herringbone pattern.
Yeah.
And so when I looked at that, then I translated it into this stalk that has exaggerated form of the sea oats head itself, using rectangular forms stamped directly into the clay.
That's amazing. And so, and because you got such a clear impression of the sea oats there, did you have to do anything to prep the plant itself to be able to get it in and out of there easily?
No, not really. Clay is a very adaptable medium to accepting details, especially if you'll see in this beech tree leaf, you get a lot of detail very easily. And if things don't want to come out from the clay as I begin to pull it gently, I just leave it. And then in the firing process, it turns to ash, and then it comes out very easily. It just blows right out.
That's amazing. And does in the firing process, does that then affect the color of the clay or anything?
No, not at all at that point.
Wow.
After it's been bisque fired, then I go back in and decide if I want to make the color match the actual object or if I want to do it in contrast. Some cases I've chosen to make the colors and the pattern themselves. If you see this line from the beech tree is kind of a zigzag and a football shaped leaf, well, I stylize that, and then as it gradually goes up, it gets lighter. And in this case, where the natural form overlaps the pattern, I do that in some cases so that the pattern and the natural form are more integrated to one another.
Really cool. So going back to the sea oats for a moment.
Sure.
On the geometric form, tell us a little bit about the glazing on that. How did you get that orange to work like that?
That's an interesting observation because that just happens naturally. The glaze that I use has I'm not sure exactly what the chemical is in the glaze, but it flows into the clay and stains the clay in the process.
So there's some intentionality, there's some organicness, and then there's some serendipity in each one of these pieces.
A lot of serendipity.
Yeah.
Yes,
cool.
That's true.
And so as you're picking, species from nature, is there anything influencing that? Are you just wandering around and find something that interests you, or do you have a personal connection to any of these plants?
Not really. Personal connections, mostly it's just walking around, being observant. I find that humans are always interested in patterns, whether it be the seasons or it's something you see or something that relates to what you have in your life. Mostly I just see patterns and then to stylize them to make it more interesting to note those patterns that are actually there that you may not see in nature when you first look at it. And I'm trying to draw that attention to the natural life, that there are patterns there that we don't always see.
Yeah, so cool. And so, but then also tell us about wall hanging. Like when I think of people working in ceramics or in clay, hanging it on the wall is not necessarily the first thing I think of. So how did you come to this particular approach?
Well, it actually started, well, to answer your question quickly, is I can do them fast.
Okay, gotcha.
If we go around the corner here, you can see some vases that I've made, and that's where they actually started. I was making vases that had just patterns or things stuck into them. And in that process, I thought, well, the patterns are just as interesting as the impressions themselves. So I started just doing one-sided pieces and then decided, well, I could hang those on the wall just as well as having them being functional in a vase.
Yeah. Well, and you've always, I certainly know you for these sort of organic forms too. I know at Nickel Plate right now for our gifted exhibit, you have some really earthy, very organic vases that are there. And so I think I've really enjoyed watching that evolve into these things that go on the wall. I feel like we know we know plates like this from you well too. You've had those in Nickel Plate shows several times.
And they've all kind of evolved from one to the other. Now these larger ones here that you see maybe at the beginning and this one, which is from a daylily. A friend of mine saw that I was having this exhibit and she said, well, they're really nice, but they're a little small for the space that I want. So I made more.
You gotta, as an artist, you have to love that, right? When somebody's like, "This is great, do it bigger."
That's right. Do it larger, and do it this color.
Yeah. Right.
So I did make them. I made some larger pieces that are multiple tiles. Now my kiln is not large enough to do a piece that size. Therefore, I used tiles that I combined together.
But you know what strikes me about that piece in particular is it almost feels like paleontology or something to me. You know, when you see paleontologists having split a layer of rock open to show a fossilized plant, it's almost like you've captured that. And then you know, clay tiles are also pretty common in antiquity too, and that the stylized daylily there also kind of feels maybe Byzantine or something.
Egyptian a little bit, yes.
Really cool. So this exhibit is here at Meyer Najem through December. And we of course encourage folks to come here and take a peek. We're on Lantern Road here in Fishers, but they also can shop online on our website. If they go to nickelplatearts.org/exhibits, they can scroll down and find your work and we can take you directly to it. And as we've already mentioned, you also have pieces in our gifted exhibit and at Noble Made in Noblesville. So nobody needs to go without a Dan Howell original now, for sure.
I like the sound of that.
And so, you know, we're here in the holiday season too. Can you talk a little bit about how important kind of holiday shopping is for you? How these sales can impact your career as an artist right now?
Well, as I said earlier, I'm retired, so anything that I do above and beyond my pension, then it always helps.
Yeah.
But mostly I make these things for myself.
Yeah.
If other people can enjoy them and I can share them with them, that's the real bonus.
Yeah. And these do make just incredible gifts. I mean, each one of these pieces is truly one of a kind. Even if you try to replicate it, there's no way to get all the patterns exactly the same, right?
That's correct. And that's part of the beauty of it too, that it's handmade and not manufactured.
Is there anything else you want to show us today?
Well, I would point out that if we're looking at this wall here, I didn't realize until I put them up, sometimes you have to get a distance to see what you have. The one in the middle that has kind of a Christmas tree look, that's kind of blue-green, I had no idea that looked like a Christmas tree until I had it up on the wall and stood away from it. It's actually a pattern of a very fine laced fern,
yeah.
delicate leaf, which I was intrigued by at the beginning, and I was looking at the shape within one particular leaf, and so I created that pattern.
Yeah, boy, this one and the abstract really mirror each other. Yeah,
I hadn't thought that at all until I got completely away from it and thought, oh, I didn't remember I made a Christmas tree.
That's so funny because I picked this one specifically to put on our website because I thought, yeah, that's seasonal.
And then you'll find that most all of them have a very rugged edge or free edge, as opposed to the other side that's near the pattern, more controlled and regulated. Cool. But all the rest, most of them have that combination of things to them.
Well, I can hear we've got guests coming to see your work. So we'll wrap this up, but thank you, Dan. Thank you for putting this exhibit together and for sharing it with us today. And keep us posted on what you're working on next.
All right, we'll do that. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan.